that you defer for 2 weeks.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can move to item F.
Yeah. All right, under planning.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I believe Ms. Rennick is here, and also Mr. Rucker from LDO to kind of help qualify or quantify some questions that we had. I think the conversation from the council last week, I was able to watch the meeting, so I heard what was said, and I appreciate some very intelligent questions, clarification. But Ms. Rennick, do you want to follow up with the email that you sent us earlier? Because I have a feeling this item may be requiring a deferral, so we can either, depending on what council decides to do, and according to the new TCA rules, I don't think we'll be able to do that in time for 6.
Okay, and I'm following up on the discussion we had on short-term vacation rental last week, and I have 2 main takeaways. One was that with this have the unintended consequence of conflicting with other codes. By having for example, an urban general commercial zone with residential use only, and then we're saying that absentee or not considered residential use is out of bounds. That's one item that's addressed. And the second was kind of a lack of clarity around, is this amendment confirming that absentee short-term vacation rentals are commercial, and then there may be some code questions in there. So our approach in working with Dallas has been to try to confirm 2 things. That one, that really staff was proposing then just to be able to give advice to during the zoning and building process to applicants. That I have a condition, short-term vacation, or I have a condition of residential use only. What does that mean? Do I get to do an absentee or not? And staff's approach was understanding that council generally has directed those toward commercial areas. That's why we said for the purposes of just this, they're considered residential uses. They're not considered residential uses. So we bumped up the language and said, really, it's relating only to the division related to short-term vacation rental. We're only talking about absentee short-term vacation rentals as a zoning permitted use, and we're only talking about it when it relates to the use of conditional zoning. So we tried to narrow the focus of the language that then, with those 3 items, absentee properties used for short-term vacation rentals are not considered to be a residential use. So we had a little bit of an alternative language that was perhaps a little bit looser. We felt this was really clear that just for that specific thing to help staff out answering the question, does residential use only, do I get to do an absentee short-term vacation rental? We're hoping kind of those 3 tests would say no to that, but not open it up to other items. The other items was codes kind of in general. We did spend a little time on the connection between use and building codes, so we're recommending adding a language that says building codes must be met as required through the permitting process. That gets to a little bit of complexity, but that would be, regardless of that zoning condition, the building code process would continue on. So it kind of just as a heads up and decouples those a little bit. And Dallas is here if there's any questions. He certainly can go into more detail about that. But I think staff's recommendation is we are trying to just use this to answer a simple question to give staff guidance. And also, if someone has a zoning condition residential use only and wants to do an absentee short-term vacation rental, they would have to lift the condition or amend the condition to allow the use, and then it would trigger that 18-month waiting period. And this is because we'd had a couple potential applicants call and say, oh, I have residential use only. I want to lift or amend the condition to allow short-term vacation rentals. So we put conditional, lifting a condition as a trigger for that waiting period. So that was staff's approach, which was to tighten it a little bit. So we're not necessarily talking about short-term vacation rentals as a commercial use related to building code or other purposes outside of that one really strict usage of it, which is for conditional zoning in that same division related to absentees. And that was just kind of staff's recommendation to keep it more narrow. We are not in a rush for this, was just kind of intended to help planning and permitting staff out. So if there's other changes or that didn't get the information you need, we're happy to do whatever.
All right. Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the biggest question for me is for Mr. Rucker, and that is, does this clarify for your office that residential use is not a short-term vacation rental use, but it is a residential use? Does this help you?
In these instances, yes.
Okay. Because I think that was the concern or the intent of the text amendment. So if this helps you, then that's what I really was concerned about and hoping to hear from you that yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Add some clarity.
Okay, the second question is for the city attorney. Phil, in the language, this is a legal language question.
Yes, sir.
When it reads something like absentee short-term vacation rentals, such request is granted, could that be misinterpreted, or is that the legal way to say if the request is granted, then action takes place? Because for a non-lawyer, to me, it reads, it's like automatic granted.
Well, I guess the concern is if you're wanting to have a mandatory instruction to the land development office that it would be granted or not. And I guess it's putting some discretion in the building official here, but you're limiting the discretion the building official may have.
So let me go back, I'll read the whole sentence. And then,
Yes, sir.
So under item D, if a property owner or applicant requests to be rezoned,
Right.
any commercial zone that allows absentee short-term vacation rentals, such request is granted. To me, that kind of reads, boom, automatically.
Yes, sir.
It does the word if such request is granted. Does that help clarify it to in layman's terms, or is that a legal terminology that?
I think it is at least saying that we're amending this section on homestay by deleting something in its entirety, and the if was in there to begin with on the front end of it. If you want us to change that, just saying whenever a property owner or applicant requests to be rezoned in a commercial zone that allows short-term vacation rentals, such request is granted, we can do that.
I'm not sure if.
He's not getting it.
What, Madam Chair, I appreciate what Councilwoman Hill has to say if you'll hit her microphone, because I know she's been tracking this very heavily.
All right, and I have Councilwoman Burrs as well as Councilwoman Conrad in the queue as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, I'll hold my, and see if the questions follow up.
Okay, Councilwoman Conrad, you were next. Was this?
No,
Okay, so would
just
you-
got a question on one of the agenda items, so I can
Okay.
yield to Jenny.
All right, we'll come back around to you, Councilwoman Conrad. Councilwoman Burrs?
Thank you. So this goes along with kind of the unclear language. I've got people in my district, never had short-term vacation rentals legally. And so all of a sudden, I'm getting requests from people to have their property rezoned to commercial so that they can then have a short-term vacation rental. My understanding was that we would allow vacation rentals only in areas where a hotel could be built. I believe that was the wording that was used. Where am I mistaken?
I think the original ordinance, I don't have a copy with me, list out the zones that absentee short-term vacation rentals are allowed in. So it includes the series of like C2, UGC, and some of the form-based code zones. We've encapsulated them into any commercial zone that allows them here, but there is a listing. So My guess is there's a connection between those zones do allow motels. I would have to go back and do a one-for-one, but there is a listing in the original ordinance, that when it put in the zoning ordinance, it lists the zone. So someone could request a C2 zone for an absentee short-term vacation rental.
So is that not defeating the whole purpose of, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking of. We have areas that you and I have spoken about a lot that are transition areas. So somebody has an O1, they can ask to go to a C2, and then they can do a short-term vacation rental absentee, right?
The C2, yes, they could request, the C2 applicant would ultimately be acted on by council, and then there's the 18-month waiting period. So the idea was to discourage the connection between, I want a short-term vacation rental, I'm applying for rezoning, and then I'm starting it immediately. So it has the 18-month buffer, and I think that, and I'll look at Dallas or Chris to see if they remember, I believe when the original research was done by Chris Acuff, it showed that people who bought or rezoned property, almost most of them immediately opened a short-term vacation rental. And I think we use that language to say a waiting period will help ensure we don't have that kind of that quick turnover transition. But yes, you're correct. Someone could apply for rezoning for a short-term vacation rental, commercial zone for a short-term vacation rental.
And then if they're granted the zone, then they have to wait 18 months?
That's correct, before they can pull an application for a short-term vacation rental. So depending on what the conditions would be, I believe it's pull the application, they can't, yeah. So they cannot pull an application for 18 months of action from council.
So we have a number of areas, at least in my district, and I think Councilman Ledford may have some of the same areas, like East Brainerd Road is a main, Lee Highway is a main, and there's others like that. So actually, you're saying the edges of all of these, even when they're really pretty residential areas, could be totally turned around if somebody, that's what I'm trying to get hold of, because that's what I'm hearing from people. And I was saying exactly what Chris said, no, only if it could be a hotel, and that, yeah, I need some clarity here.
Councilwoman, the only areas where you can have, the only zones, where you can have a short-term vacation rental that is absentee are the zones that allow for hotels. This legislation doesn't make that looser, it tightens it up. The only thing it does is capture the people who, they have a condition on their property currently that only allows residential uses. We didn't contemplate that in the original legislation. Like all good legislation, it evolves and you add things into it as things come up. This is just shoring up that one loophole. It doesn't open up new areas to STVRs, it does the opposite.
Thank you.
All right. Ms.
Also note that those transition areas are often an R401 zone, and those don't allow absentee short-term vacation rentals.
But they could ask to be
They
rezoned.
could. But we also would do the thorough staff review, and of course, that would be action by council.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Vice Chair Hill.
Thank you, Chair. So to go back to the question specifically about the language as is being proposed in the email that we received, and then we have a red line version as well. Phil, I think that what Councilman Ledford was getting at in change number 2 for section D is there's just some grammatical oddness to these sentences.
Right.
And I think if we add the word to and we, after a comma, add and if, like these are things that could, if a property owner or applicant requests to be zoned to any commercial zone that allows absentee short-term vacation rentals, comma, and if such request is granted, the owner or applicant may not apply for an absentee, so just for the clarity of the language.
We can add those, no problem.
Yeah.
In my draft, it's got, if a property owner or applicant requests to be rezoned to any commercial zone, but it doesn't have the and if on there. And
Okay, well, it may be just a difference between the email and the other.
Yes.
And as the wording, the tightness of the wording is the critical element here. And with our need for public awareness of what we're looking at, I think it would be, and we have at least 2 folks out next week. I think it would be good for us to defer this for 2 weeks. And I'll bring that up tonight.
All right. Okay. All right, any more comments or questions? All right, thank y'all so much. Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Coonrod. I'll just say hit your light.
Yeah,
Councilwoman
go.
Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. If we can go back to police, item C. And I know we talked about this extensively, about the park ordinance that the state is mandating that we come into compliance with. I'm sure you all saw the email that I also copied our city attorney on, because it wasn't resting well with me, because I read it a total different way. And once I reached out to the state senate, it confirmed exactly what I was, communicating, that we still could operate under the current ordinance that we currently have. We just needed to be in compliance within 120 days. I did communicate that to Phil before I sent out an entire email to everybody. However, our city attorney, Phil, since we are the legislative body, and I did put that request in the email, if you can draft us a legislative ordinance so that the city council can review, because it shouldn't come from the administrators for us to review. That's our job to do. It's not their job to give us something to review. The state already has laid out exactly what it is they would like to see, if we're going to be in compliance or not. Or we can even look at our ordinance and see what we can add into from the state ordinance to make sure we're in compliance. And in saying that, that's not saying it's if I agree or not. It's just that I want to make sure that city council, that we're doing our job and we're not actively participating like the state want to remove our voice, that our administration is not doing the exact same thing.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you.
All right. All right, if you continue to look at your agenda for this evening, we've covered majority of the planning items. I'm sorry, item D, which is in Councilwoman Knowles' district. She's out today, so if we can get a deferral on that one for 1 week. If you would take a look at resolutions, if you have any comments or questions, please hit your light. All right. We have resolutions, council office, mayor's office, and planning. Right, I don't see any additional lights at the moment. All right, council, if you take a look at your next week's proposed agenda. Any comments or questions, please hit your light. All right, Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chairwoman. For item C, under Public Works, the resolution for next week, I had asked this question, if we could just get some clarity at the mic about the Department of Public Works applying for a competitive American Rescue Plan grant. It sounds as if this is a done deal that we would apply for and accept, but perhaps it is not fully a done deal.
Madam Chair.
It's more of apply for and accept if
Public
awarded.
Works.
Oh, my
Committee.
apologies.
Oh, we have a
We
public
could
works.
probably discuss it then.
All right, I'll ask that question in a minute then.
All right.
My apologies.
All right, thank you, Councilman Henderson. Any other questions, Madam Vice Chair?
That's it for this part.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on the 2-week agenda? All right, any questions under purchasing? We have 5 purchases and 1 renewal. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. We have one purchase here related to a 6-month extension for the 12th Street encampment management. I wondered if you guys could fill us in on where we are in the process with that and our thoughts moving forward.
Sure, happy to. So as y'all know, we issued a new RFP for the operations of the sanctioned encampment a couple of months ago. The RFP did not result in any proposals that met the criteria that we put out. So Help Right Here has agreed to extend their existing contract one more time. So this 6-month extension will essentially serve as an off-ramp for the sanctioned encampment. We recognize that a lack of RFP responses that meet the appropriate criteria typically means that we don't move forward with any contract, but there are obviously humans involved in this scenario, and it's of course the priority of the administration and Help Right Here and this council, of course, that the residents currently living on the site are not negatively impacted by the sanctioned encampment winding down. So the 6-month extension will basically ensure plenty of time for the residents to be placed into housing, and OSH will work collaboratively with Help Right Here over the next 6 months to support these efforts as well. We have been in touch with the Housing Authority, and Betsy has agreed to also work with OSH and Help Right Here throughout the process so that we can make sure that everyone ends up in a permanent unit. So we're confident that 6 months is a sufficient amount of time to ensure that the residents are connected to the resources they need and then to a permanent unit as well. And we are grateful for help right here, being flexible with us and working with us on the extension so that we can facilitate this process in the best way for the residents.
Thank you, Brett. All right, is that it, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Oh, Councilman Ledford.
Madam Chair, forgive me, can we revisit item F on today's agenda?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, I think we left something out.
Right, item F, under Mayor's
Yes, ma'am, it was
Office.
the short-term vacation rental.
On vacation rental.
Are we needing to defer that for 1 week? And does council need 2 weeks? And, right, 2 people are out. Do we instruct the city attorney's office to place the new or proposed language from RPA and LDO combined into that? Did we make that request of the city attorney's office? To prepare an alternate version?
Yes, prepare an alternate version.
I will prepare it, and it requires at least 48 hours worth of notice here under the new state
Or the
law
new
provisions
TCA.
as well.
Very good, all right. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Clear that out. All right, if you would take a look at future considerations, any comments or questions? Okay, Councilman Hester.
17B, that we're allocating $17,000 from the American Rescue Plan for the Chattanooga Zoo, promoting ethnic diversity in the zoo programs. Can we get some clarification on that?
Councilman, can you say the question one more time?
Okay, we're allocating $17,000 from American Rescue Plan for ethnic diversity programs, and it's saying that it's going to be employment opportunities and mentorship to Chattanooga High School students. Can you?
So this is
Clear it
from Councilman Henderson's
Okay.
ARPA
Oh,
award. So I'm sure that he would love to inform the council on the program.
and I have my light on.
All right, Councilman Henderson.
Great. So, Councilman, this money, I talked to Darty about providing opportunities for basically high school students that need work through the summer, that would promote diversity and hopefully partner. You'll see on tonight's agenda, I'm allocating some dollars to Olivet Baptist to take kids on trips, much like what I have done over the past years. And what I was hoping that we might be able to take some of those individuals that would be needing work through the summer and be able to employ them at the zoo while giving them some, instructional background and promoting diversity and just trying to reach some of those, negatively impacted kids. That's great. Definitely building character for our kids. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
All right, anything else, Councilman Hester?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Henderson as well. All right, any other questions on the future considerations? All right, we have a departmental report today. We have animal control update, committees, Parks and Public Works, and then we have a Black firefighter presentation, and we also have an attorney-client meeting after those items. So right now, we will have the animal control update. With that, I did request Councilwoman Coonrod.
Oh, you can go ahead after, so I just
After,
got
okay.
a question before we end the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna clear it back out. All right, so for the animal control update, I did request, because there were so many concerns we received at our council meetings, and I'm sure some of you may have received some as well, asked that we get an update about what is going on with animal control. So I did ask Chris Anderson, who's over now the board appointments, to come and speak about what's going on with the board appointments. McCamey, who is our contracted services, and then as well as the Chattanooga Police Department, who ultimately has control over that department. So, Chris, if you could give us an update on the Animal Control Board, and then followed by that, we'll have an update from Inga with McCamey, and then the police department to round us out.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And I've got 9 copies of a memo for the 8 members here. I'll put one in Councilwoman Knoll's mailbox, and there's one for the attorney as well. Thank you, Councilwoman. It's good to see you all today. This is information about the current status of the Animal Control Board. We have confirmed appointments for Districts 1, 3, and 9. We have pending appointments for Districts 6 and 8 that will be on agendas later on this month. We have no pending appointments for Districts 2, 4, 5, and 7. So far, we've not had a lot of applications for this board, and I'm kind of surprised by that because in the past, that's not been the case, and there's been a lot of media attention around it. Thank you, Councilwoman Hill, for sending that out in your newsletter today, that you were looking for someone for District 2. That's fantastic. There has been, I have 3 applications that I brought today that are the only 3 applications we have that have come in this calendar year that are in districts that don't currently have an appointment. And Madam Chair, 2 of them are in your district, and Madam Vice Chair, 1 is in your district. I'll give those to you after the meeting. This is not a recommendation, it's just this is the totality of the applications for your districts and any district where there's not a person. So that is the composition of the board. As far as the operations and management, I checked with my friend Councilman Henderson. He and I both dealt with a very foul issue. Nobody? Okay. With urban chickens 10 years ago, and we worked with this board. That didn't land. And we both remember that it was managed and staffed by the Chattanooga Police Department. And I went back through the records. It is a city board similar to the Beer and Record Board or the Passenger Vehicle for Hire Board. That is not to say that city officers necessarily write tickets or citations to it, but the administrative staff for that board is a CPD function.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any other questions about the Animal Control Board or urban chickens or whatever you got.
Right. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you for addressing the urban chickens, because Highland Park and Ridgedale, they want them in their community. But we talked about it at the neighborhood meeting about who would regulate it, so that answers some of those questions. I appreciate you. I also want to thank you for really working hard on looking for all types of people to serve on our boards. I see here in your list of appointments now, like it's Black people, white people, Latinos, all kind of people. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And we've achieved that in the administration by looking at new places for board members. Instead of going to the same people that are on every board in town, we've opened up where we're actually seeking people and asking them to serve and making the opportunities available. Thank you for posting on Facebook about all your available board appointments. That's a really good way to get people who are interested, who didn't know how to take part in city government before.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Coonrod, did you have additional questions?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
not for Chris.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Councilwoman Burrs.
Chris, just to clarify something, you said it's a police function. So if someone has a problem with animals, they call police and police call McCamey?
No, ma'am. Councilwoman, the function in our charter and our ordinances for animal services is vested with the police department. And the police department holds the contract with our animal service provider, which is McCamey. So they're the department that manages the enforcement of that, but the way they manage it is they have a contract with an outside agency.
Okay, so they're delegating it. So if somebody has a problem,
Yes,
they are to contact,
McCamey.
okay, thank you.
And the administrative function is not McCamey's responsibility for the Animal Control Board, though. That is a CPD administrative function.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Chris about the Animal Control Board? All right, thank you, Chris. All right, Inga, if you would come on up.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here with you and to discuss a little bit about the shelter. I could go on and on, so I promise I will try to keep it very brief. So I wanted to start out by just, if it's allowed, to just share copies of the Community Impact Report that we sent to all of you a couple of weeks ago now. I realize that we have, as an agency, really been remiss in terms of our communication with city council, so we wanted to figure out a way that we could at least give you kind of a very quick overview of what we're doing and how we're doing. So I'm happy to pass, is that?
We actually have those in our folders today.
Okay,
We got
perfect.
them as well,
Great.
but thank you for bringing extra copies.
Then what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a supplement to that. I'm not going to basically rehash everything that's in there. So, okay. Sorry.
It happens all the time.
I'm so sorry. Where? Okay, I can totally just babble, but it will be better.
Yes.
If
You just tell them to
see it.
change it.
There's a switch on that, you might need to.
Oh, yeah, turning it on will help. Thanks. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Just very briefly, McCamey Animal Services, just like any other animal welfare organization, is kind of a prototypical iceberg situation. People have an idea of what we do, that we take in animals, we adopt out animals, and we perform an animal control law enforcement function. But there's actually so much more to it that most people are not even aware of. We provide animal care for upwards of 5,000 animals a year. That is every species, every age, every type of animal you can think of. Animals come into us diseased, ill, injured, friendly, incredibly aggressive, and our staff really have to navigate all of that. We operate based on best practices that are provided by national organizations, including the Association of Shelter Veterinarians, to make sure that we are providing the proper care for every single animal, regardless of its species and condition, and providing for not just its physical well-being, but its psychological well-being also. So our staff have to be well-versed in all of that. We essentially operate a veterinary practice. Even though we are not a full scope veterinary office, we still have to provide for all of the veterinary care for each and every one of the animals that we have in-house. And we also provide spay-neuter, vaccine, and other services for members of the public. So all of the regulatory obligations, the legal obligations, and all of the practice obligations that come with running a veterinary practice have to be maintained. We essentially function as a police department. We have our own dispatch team, and we have our own officers that cover our community 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I am joined today by our Director of Animal Protection, Seth Watson, who runs that team, but essentially we have to operate as a minor policing agency as well. We have all the obligations of a regular small business in terms of our finances, for example. We are audited every year. We have responsibilities with respect to donor dollars to make sure that every dollar is accounted for and spent properly. We have all of the HR obstacles, FEMLA, and other things of other small businesses. We have all of the same kind of infrastructure needs, HVAC, all of that. But most small businesses don't have to deal with things that are actively trying to bite that infrastructure or urinate on that infrastructure or any of that. So we have to have a very specialized facility, and our building, if you haven't been there lately, is over 26,000 square feet, all aimed at trying to humanely house the animals in our care. We operate as a social services agency. Very often we are called upon by CPD or others to help people who are going into mental health facilities, or people who are dealing with illnesses, hospitalizations, people who are in crisis because of domestic violence situations or other conditions. And we are focused on their pets, but we have to navigate their personal situations as well. And we also have to provide mental health support for our staff. Most people are not aware that the veterinary profession and the animal welfare profession has one of the highest suicide rates of any profession there is, for a variety of reasons. But it is largely because we deal with victims all day, every day, and they have no voice. So there is a whole lot that goes into animal sheltering that really is beyond the scope of what most people realize we do every day. Just to name a few of the improvements that we have been made since I took over in 2021. We are now in alignment with all best practices on a national level, and we have renewed national partnerships that have brought dollars into us and expertise and guidance. Our staff is fear-free certified. We have embraced modern progressive animal protection practices, animal welfare practices, and even adoption practices. Most of our fees for services are actually now waived. There is no reason why I want to hold on to someone's animal because they can't pay a reclaim fee, for example. So we have really switched our model of funding much more heavily towards donations rather than fees for services in order to help keep people and pets together. And we have a renewed focus on lost pet recovery, both in the field and in our shelter. Again, we want to keep people and pets together wherever possible. And customer service is absolutely a priority for us. That was something I heard when I first started. Communications is difficult, customer response is difficult, so we have been actively working on improving that. We have added various lines of communication for the public. Obviously, our staff is busy all day working with the animals. We are not sitting at our desks all day, so I know that can be a frustration, but we have been doing everything we can to reduce those kinds of complaints, and I think we've been doing that successfully. We've made major improvements to our facility. Most of them you might not actually notice, but they are helping keep our animals safe and make the building more humane, both for those animals and for the people that work there. And we have quite a few projects coming up as well that I hope you will approve of. And one of our biggest efforts right now is to create a larger footprint within the city of Chattanooga in our community outreach. We launched Pets for Life Chattanooga, which is working specifically in the Alton Park neighborhood. We are meeting tomorrow with the Met-Min folks to see about establishing a more permanent space on the other side of the river. We have hired a new community solutions manager. So what we are doing right now is really focusing on meeting the needs of the community and community members where they are, as opposed to just waiting for animals to come to us. All of that, I think, has resulted in a lot of really positive recognition for us and for the city of Chattanooga. Last year, we had our first ever nominations and wins in terms of the best Chattanooga, but we have also received national recognition, national and international, for some of the policies that we have created, for our programs. In fact, just today, I was given a draft of an article that is coming out by Best Friends Animal Sanctuary that is going to go national. It focuses exclusively on McCamey Animal Center and our programs, and it calls us one of the best shelters in the South operating today. We're doing all this in really unprecedented times. I have been in this business for more than 20 years, and this is the first time that we have seen this conflagration of crises. A lot of it has to do with the pandemic. We've been set back about 20 or 30 years in terms of spay-neuter. We had such an influx of people taking in animals that we are now having a crisis of not having places to place animals. This is a national crisis. You can look through the papers, and every week you will see shelters from California to Maine closing their doors, begging for assistance because we are all overcrowded. So we've been working to try and make sure that we are still a humane environment, even though we are dealing with these overcrowding conditions. There's also a national veterinary shortage right now. Basically, there are 18 open positions for every veterinarian that might be looking for a job. And it's similar with respect to vet techs and vet assistants. So we are very fortunate that we do have 2 vets that work with us in-house. But that national veterinary shortage is compounding problems of animals not getting spayed or neutered in time. And so we have more and more and more litters of animals out there, and we simply don't have an infrastructure nationally to deal with the overabundance of animals that then is translating into an influx into our shelters. Of course, staffing shortages are affecting everyone in all kinds of industries. We are no exception. Right now, Officer Watson and Officer Edwards are our only 2 fully trained and certified officers. The rest of ours are in training, but that's something that everybody is dealing with, and we do our best to navigate. And certainly, costs are increasing for us. Costs of food have gone up more than 20%. Utilities have skyrocketed for us. But that doesn't just hurt our operations. As costs go up in the community, people are unable to keep their animals. And we are seeing nationally more and more and more animals, stray animals in particular, coming into shelters. Just to share that we are no exception to that, we took a look at our stray dog admissions, and as you can see, year by year, stray dogs make up the majority of our dog intake for a variety of reasons, including abandonments, economic considerations, all of that. But we are reflective of the national crisis that's happening right now. Stray dogs, I just should note, should come with a lot of obstacles. We have to hold them minimum numbers of days as opposed to surrendered animals, which adds to our population. We don't get the benefit of information about their behavior, so we have to devote more time to kind of making sure that they are truly adoptable. There are all of these kind of ripple effects. And then getting into what I hope will be interesting to you, we wanted to take a look at our responses. I mentioned that we are very, very short-staffed right now within our animal protection team, yet we are on track to provide more animal services responses to our community than we ever have in our history. So our officers are really doing a yeoman's job of making sure that they are addressing community needs wherever possible. We also broke it down by call types. It shouldn't be a surprise that strays in our community are the biggest number of calls that we get, but we do get a variety of calls. I just wanted to highlight bite investigations because I know we certainly want to make sure that our community is safe, that people do have the perception that their community is safe. We actually have very few bite incidences. These are the statistics for just the first 6 months of this year, but about a third of those just involved animal to animal. They didn't even involve people. And the majority of the animal to people bites are either within the home or animals that are known to the person. They can be quarantined at home, things like that. So we are very pleased that we actually have very few incidents of stranger to animal bites in our community. And again, just wanted to share in case you are interested, this is the ratio of responses and calls that come in based on district. We do spend the vast majority of our time in districts 9, 8, and 7, which is to be expected because those really are our population centers. And then last but not least, I just wanted to share a little bit of information on the value of our services. Looking last year, if we estimated that only 4,000 of the nearly 5,000 that came in, if we anticipate only 4,000 of those came from the city of Chattanooga itself, estimating that it costs us about $700 per animal to get it from intake through to placement, that would be about $2.8 million spent on those 4,000 animals. And then we add in the cost of the 24/7 officer coverage, and the city is getting a value of at least $3.15 million per year, and that is not including all of our community outreach services, our programs, our community services, all of the other things that we provide. So we just wanted to reassure you that hopefully you agree you are getting a good value for the dollars that our taxpayers are putting into our services. And we work hard every day to maximize every single dollar that we receive, both for the animals and for the people. And for those of you who may be interested, I just wanted to extend a warm welcome that we open our doors to our VIP tours, just so people can get kind of a behind-the-scenes tour. Of course, you're always welcome to have your own individual tour. I'm happy to tour you around. But if you would like to come, or if you have someone who you think might be interested in learning more about what we do, we basically open the doors to the facility so everybody can see kind of what's going on and learn a lot more and get to meet some of our staff. But those are some of the dates. But again, please feel free to let me know if you would like your own personal tour. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, as is Director Watson.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Inga, and we do have a few questions coming in. Councilwoman Coonrod, followed by Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Man, I've been wanting to ask y'all this, I know probably since I was a little girl. Why did y'all come pick up them cats and bring them back?
Why do we or don't we?
Do you, like, I done called several times, y'all will come pick this same cat up, and then you will drop him right back off right on my property.
Yes, there's a reason for that. That is actually a national best practice put forward by the National Animal Control Association and others. I'll give you I could like babble, but I'll give you the highlight. The fact is, when you remove a cat from a property, you're essentially creating a vacuum effect. As long as there are still resources like food and shelter, studies have proven that not only is one more cat going to replace it, but multiples are. And if those multiples are unaltered, you are actually magnifying your problem. So the best thing, the best practice after years and years of professional study is to alter that cat and put it back so that you only have that one cat, but you know that it's not going to cause a problem. For those people who really have concerns about cats in their yard, we have a lot of tips on our website in terms of cat management and techniques that you can use, either just kind of DIY or things that you can purchase to keep cats out of your yard or out of particular areas. And our officers will actually go out and work with homeowners. Very often they'll say, well, I bought this deterrent and it doesn't work. Well, that's because when we go out, it's because the deterrent isn't positioned correctly or it's not being used properly. So we find that the vast majority of time when we kind of explain that to people, the rationale behind it, and then help them with deterrence, that virtually always solves the problem.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be calling y'all for help.
Yeah,
'Cause
please.
I don't like cats. I don't want them in my yard. I can't afford to feed them. I ain't trying to feed them.
I get it.
All right, that's it, Councilwoman Coonrod?
Yep, that's it.
All right, Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does that same technique work with relatives coming to visit?
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm sure we could work with you on some of that. The deterrence probably would.
In all seriousness, what is the area that you service and funding-wise for the organization? When someone comes to drop off, I was real interested, you really piqued my attention at the animals the percentage not coming from the city of Chattanooga, or what is the surrounding area that you serve? And when someone brings you, you called it surrendering, is there identification that's required? I mean, I'm sure there's a process and you're tracking who's bringing it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yes. Right now, we are contracted to serve the city of Chattanooga. We also serve Red Bank, and we serve the city of Lakesite. We do not accept animals from anywhere else outside our jurisdiction except for formal transfers in. So if someone is calling from Soddy Daisy, for example, and need to surrender their animals, we divert them to the appropriate agency. We actually changed that policy shortly after I started so that we could make sure that we were exclusively serving the communities that were paying for those services as opposed to other communities. So we may, from time to time, for example, there was a shelter a few months ago, I think it was the beginning of the year, that ended up taking 1,000 mice and hamsters and all kinds of stuff from a seizure. So we did take a few of those in. Unfortunately, two of the mice had babies, so we took in more than we thought we would. But we count those as transfers, not as coming in from the city of Chattanooga. So we take a few hundred, maybe as many as 500 from Red Bank, approximately a year. We'll take a handful from Lakeside, but the overwhelming majority, fully 95% of the animals we take in are strictly from the city of Chattanooga. And we do that, again, deliberately, because that's where funding is coming from in part.
Okay, so if someone comes from Ray County or Grundy County or wherever, and they present their ID, I guess you're looking at those addresses and it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, we're actually trying to head them off at the pass before they even come to us. And we do that through communications with our admissions team. And we have all kinds of resources set up at their fingertips to say, okay, so you're from Ray County, here is where you can go as an alternative. Obviously, if someone comes to our door with an animal that they didn't find within the city of Chattanooga and they don't live within Chattanooga, but that animal is suffering, we are going to take it in. but that's the exception. We're not going to turn away an animal that is in dire need. But again, that's kind of where we have that exception of the numbers.
And that's a great humane question or an answer, because you find a dog or something that's been hit. I mean, you want to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And, you know, sorry,
Yeah.
my address doesn't fit but
Right.
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a constant balancing act
Sure.
for us.
Well, it's not, life isn't always so easy. So, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Ledford. Any other questions? Madam Vice Chair Hill.
Thank you. I appreciate the detail that you included in this presentation. It was helpful to better understand what it is to run a shelter versus a dog daycare or a veterinary practice. I wonder, are there changes or what changes to our animal control ordinances would be helpful to you? Like a spay neuter requirement? Are there things that we as a body should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have kind of a wish list of changes that we would like to see. When we are looking at the ordinance, when I first came, our ordinance is actually fairly progressive. I mean, even the fact that it talks about feral cats or community cats, that's not something that most communities have. There are tweaks that we would like to make that would make it make a little more sense and make things easier for us. For example, if somebody brings in a litter of puppies and kittens, those don't have a hold period under the current ordinance. But if they only bring in one, we do have to hold them for a certain number of days. And there's, I'm sure, logic behind it. We certainly want to be careful about unintended consequences, because things like mandatory spay-neuter sound like a perfect solution, right, to make sure we don't have litters coming in. But the fact is, Chattanooga, like most communities, doesn't have the spay-neuter infrastructure to meet that need, number one. And then number two, what we found historically is that very often it's those who are in underserved communities who are most impacted by those, because they can't necessarily afford the fees for the spay-neuter, or it's really difficult to set up an appointment for that. So instead, we do have that wish list of things that would help us move animals through more quickly, that would clarify some items for us, that would change things, for example, from just licensing as an identification requirement to adding in microchip as an identification requirement, which is actually more permanent and better for us. So yeah, I would be happy to share those. I've already shared those with some of the council members. But
great.
you know, certainly there are things, relatively minor tweaks that could help us better kind of adapt to modern sheltering practices.
Okay, that's good to know that she pointed to you. Okay, great. And I'll just put a little plug in that my sweet dog Fran is a McCamey adoptee. And when people ask me what breed she is, I tell them she's McCamey ambassador breed, because that's what I was told she was, and why her adoption fee was higher. Apparently now they're free, but anyway.
might have to
She's worth
steal that.
every penny of the $125 I paid for.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Councilwoman Burrs.
I want to thank you publicly for all the good work you're doing. I know you've gotten a few hard knocks publicly, and I want to balance those. Because I'm so familiar with the Family Justice Center, I'm very much aware of what you're doing. You know, when you have an abuser-victim situation, one of the first things abuser will do is threaten or hurt dogs. Sometimes more than kids, and it's a pretty awful situation. And you all need to know that McCamey is part of our team. And when a victim comes in, very often a victim will come in with an animal, and McCamey right away will take the animal and take that burden off the victim and keep the animal safe. Thank you very, very much for that. Most people don't know that, and I'm very proud that you do that.
Well, thank you. We do our best to keep them together, but the Family Justice Center and the other social services groups that we work with, have been amazing and hugely helpful for us. They invited us to speak on animal cruelty issues, particularly with respect to domestic violence, because animals really are part of the family. Even things like homelessness, we work very closely with the Help Right Here camp, not trying to take people's animals away, but trying to make conditions better for people and animals. So thank you for that. I appreciate that so much.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Any other questions? Okay, I did have a question about, because I live in East Lake, as you well know, and we have fowls, goats, dogs, cats, all the things. So my question is regarding the staffing. I know Councilwoman Hill, Madam Vice Chair Hill did ask about, what are some things that we could do? But you mentioned earlier that you had 2 fully trained officers and the rest were in training. Could you give us the number that's in training, and what does that particular portion of full staff look like?
Yeah, I'll let Director Watson speak to that.
We currently have 3 officers in training. 1 officer will be starting training this Friday, and we have 1 empty position that we are hiring for. And so the training normally lasts 1.5 to 2 months. And so during that time, or in 2 months' time, we should have about 6 officers on the road.
Okay, so you should have a total of 6, so the 4 that's in training plus the 2, is that what
Let me think.
We have a total of 7, including you.
Yes, yeah,
Total of
7
7.
officers, including myself.
Positions.
Okay. So how are y'all keeping up with the demand with only the 2 officers?
We are having to prioritize the calls that we respond to, just like always. Unfortunately, with the number of calls that we get and just having 2 officers on the road, it's harder for us to get to the lower priority calls, such as a dog running at large that's not aggressive. That's a call that, unfortunately, it's gonna take us longer to respond to. But we were trying to, of course, respond first to public safety calls, anything that is gonna be a danger to the public. And then calls that are animals in distress or injured animals, those are gonna be priority 2. And then nuisance animal, or along with the priority 2 would be animals that are neglected. And then priority 3 would be code enforcement issues involving animals.
Okay. And is there a way, and I don't know if it's in your annual report, but could you send us those priority levels there so that we can share that with our constituents? I know I get a lot of calls from constituents about, well, I called McCamey, they didn't come out, or whatever the case is. And it is very frustrating. And so if there's some information that we could share as constituents call us and say, hey, was it one of these calls? Is this what's going on? That way we can be more proactive, or at least better informed about how, what's going on, what's the processes, because I know I get consistent calls about all the things that you get calls about.
Yes.
So it becomes very frustrating for me, it becomes frustrating for the constituents. So to be able to have that in just a simple 1-page, hey, these are the priority level calls, this is what they respond to first, and these are things that they don't respond to. Like, I had a dead cat in my yard. I called McCamey. They said, we don't pick up animals like that, and I was shocked because I don't pick up animals like that either. So I had to figure something out. So it was a very distressing Saturday. So just being able to have that information, not just for constituents, but also for myself as well, so that they'll know, hey, these are the things that McCamey has. This is what they do. This is what they don't do. I think that would be very helpful for us.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I can send that to you.
All right, thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? All right, Inga, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just to round it out, the Chattanooga Police Department, who ultimately has all the things for this. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So if you can tell us CPD's role in animal control and where y'all are with it currently.
We're basically just a administrator of it. However, if you call the police, we will show up, but we generally will reach out to McCamey to have them handle the animals.
Okay. And what is your role with the Animal Control Board? Now, do you all staff that? I know we're currently getting that together, but do you all staff the Animal Control Board, or what happened previously to the previous board?
As far as the, I'm not, I know I'll be the contact person with Mr. Anderson coming up, but as far as the past dealings with the Animal Control Board, I can't really talk about it. I don't know that much about that part of it.
All right. Okay, that's all I wanted. Any other questions or comments? Right, I don't see anything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right, next we do have, Parks and Public Works, Parks and Public Works Committee, and then we also have a presentation by the firefighters. And Councilman Councilman Hester, do you mind if the firefighters go first and then we can? Go ahead. Okay, yes, yes, so, Mr. Brooks.
I appreciate you all making me feel like I'm a priority.
You are.
It goes without saying how much we want to say thank you for just supporting everything that we do in the community. It's always said that you don't get an opportunity to see and know the impact that you make on someone's life because you're busy making that impact. Later on, it comes back around where somebody tell you what you've done for them 5 or 6 years on down the line. But I was just brought up and raised to say thank you. We wanted to be here the day after the camp was over to say thank you. But according to you all's scheduling, we are here now. There was a video that was done by someone that just supported our efforts, seeing what we was doing, and they just came and volunteered, and I think they did more than we even expected. So they put a video together, and I just want you all to see just a snippet of it, just to see the lives that were touched and what you've done to ensure that we continue to embrace our young folks. While those pictures are, I'm gonna take advantage of this thing and just talk while the pictures are showing. But I have certificates for the mayor, the fire chief, the police chief, and all of the council members, just to let you know how much we certainly appreciate what you all done. The words that you said, those of you that showed up, Councilman Coonrod, I have those on top, so if you just take them and pass them on around, I certainly do appreciate it. It just reads that in appreciation of their invaluable contributions to the IABP FF Brothers United, your dedication and gratitude have made a significant impact, and we are grateful for your support of the first annual Dave Floyd Youth Camp. While you're looking at some of those photos, the Dave Floyd Youth Camp was the model for youth camps all across the country, and it came here first. So next year, we will be doing our own youth camp. The Dave Floyd Youth Camp will be moving to Miami to teach those initiatives that need to be set for our young people. We had chess, we had interpersonal skill activities. Every morning, the kids would get up and do a elevator speech. They would prepare them the night before. It was just a wonderful impact. And if you could see, this camp is not like no other done around the city of Chattanooga. It's an overnight process to where, you know, we stayed 5 or 6 nights. Like I told you all, my kids are grown. I don't hardly play with kids that much anymore. But it's something, man, to just see when they get it, you know, the glow in their eyes when you're talking to them, and just the respect level that they have for authority and law enforcement, police officers. Don't want to tell you, can't tell you the impact that the police chief made on those young ladies by just them seeing a real live person as the police chief in front of them and talking to them. Of course, Hamilton County came out full force with everything that they presented. The fire department was there in droves. It was just a wonderful impact. We have been solicited to do other things, and we're going to the table to try to show other organizations. As you can see, Ms. Chambers came out, the kids learned how to wail, you know, just to have hands-on. Words just can't explain it, so that's why we wanted to show you all some of the pictures and the impact on these young people's lives that we made through you all supporting what we want to do with our young folks. And we're going to continue to give back, but we just want to continually to say thank you for everything that you've done and will do. I'm not going to pass a pen and ask for no collection, but I know your hearts. I know you all. We have a relationship that goes back. I just certainly appreciate it, and I love you, and I thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. We rarely get certificates up here, so thank you so much. Any comments or questions? Wait just a second. You know we got stuff to say. Councilman Hester?
And you don't stay up here long.
I did. I'm sorry.
Thank you for all you do, exposing our kids.
Well, here's a couple of our members here too. And let me say this. Brother George Johnson, for whatever reason, left the city of Chattanooga and went to Nashville Fire Department to work. But he's back here just for this presentation. So those are the type of impacts we make within our members and what we make in the community. And that's just the level of respect that we have for you all. And I actually put on this suit. It's right from the dry cleaning. I wanted to come down here.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, Councilman Hester?
Thank you, man, for exposing our kids to all that, man. I know it's like they had a great time, too.
Yes,
man. Appreciate that.
It was. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're going to, if there are not any other questions about the presentation, we'll go into Parks and Public Works with Councilman Hester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to Parks and Public Works Committee. Can we accept minutes? Thank you. Madam Clerk. Seven J, please.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a change order with Alfred Benish and Company to provide engineering services for the remainder of contract number T-15-024-101 Shallowford Road to Jersey Pike widening project to include surveying, environmental services, roadway and bridge design, signal design, geotechnical services, utility coordination, right-of-way acquisition services, bidding and construction services, as funds are approved for each phase, in the amount of $1,147,672.68.
Resolution 7, Public Works C.
A resolution authorizing the Administrator for the Department of Public Works to apply for and accept a competitive American Rescue Plan Resource Protection Grant from the Chattanooga Department of Environment and Conservation, TDEC, to address in-stream sediment pollution rates in the Mountain Creek watershed through 3 stream restoration projects in the amount of $1,785,000, and authorizing the city's 17% match of $300,000 for a total project cost of $2,085,000.
Vice Chair Hill, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the question I had before. I wanted clarity. The way this is written, it sounds as if it's a done deal, that it's actually been awarded. Is that the case, or is this a possibility? It looks like a great project.
It really depends on how much of. Yeah.
Good afternoon. This is just an application for a competitive grant. So this one is not a done deal, so to speak. But we are in the running for it. I think the minimum match for the grant is a minimum of 5%. However, the match that's included in the application and is in this resolution is $300,000, which is a 17%, which is to increase our points, so to speak, in the scoring and the matrix to make us more competitive.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Certainly.
Phil, this caption is just written differently than most grant applications. Typically, we would have apply for and if awarded accept,
Yes.
which is why I stumbled on that one. If that's just
We'll be
something-
glad to add that change if you want us to.
Well, I don't know that we formally need to add it, but just for the future, it
We will.
would save some question and answer time.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
guys, I appreciate it.
You good, Councilwoman? Madam Clerk, D, please. Oh, is he? Okay,
Now it says it's disabled.
Councilman Henderson, please.
It says it's disabled, but next.
There you go.
Now we're on. Now we're on. Bill, it says 3 stream restoration projects. What do those projects involved in? And where along the stream are those projects located?
Certainly. Typically, all three of these locations are places that need some stream bank stabilization. And so, instead of using riprap or some other method, we would use a stream bank restoration methodology in order to do it, which just means that we would use more like live plantings and things that you would naturally expect to see. So we'll essentially make it continue to appear as a natural stream segment, but be less prone to the erosion that would happen. The 3 locations, one is the Quail Hollow site. It's about 600 linear feet. The next is the Spring Valley site, which is about 300 linear feet. And then there's a site near the Church of Christ that's also about 600 linear feet.
On Runyon Drive?
That's the approximate location on this overview map, but I can get you more specifics about that, but I believe that is the location.
Okay. Thanks. I think Runyon Drive, don't we have concrete in those ditches there? Or
I would have to get more details on the specifics of this location, but it is possible that some of this could involve taking out some portions. And I believe all of this is directly on the main channel of Mountain Creek, but I can certainly get you additional details on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. D, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a design and construction management fee agreement with the Sports Authority for the County of Hamilton and the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee, Chattanooga Professional Baseball LLC, and Perimeter Properties LLC, relating to the payment of architect fees for design services and construction manager at-risk fees for pre-construction, construction management services, and early procurement construction packages for the proposed stadium in the South Broad District Ballpark for up to $3.3 million total, to be equally shared among the City of Chattanooga, Chattanooga Professional Baseball LLC, and Perimeter Properties LLC, and authorizing the city's share of $1.1 million, with such funds expected to be reimbursed from bond proceeds from bonds expected to be issued by the Sports Authority.
I see no hands. That's you again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chip Henderson.
Thank you, sir.
Henderson.
Hey, Chief, these funds, it says it'll be reimbursed from the bond proceeds, which will be repaid through the TIF, correct? So all of this money here will be paid for by the TIF.
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay. All right. Thanks.
You good?
Thank you.
Okay. E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award the professional services for continuing environmental consulting services for asbestos, lead, indoor air quality, and other environmental assessments, on-call blanket contract number E-23-014-301, with the following 10 consultant firms: Alternative Actions, Inc., Athena Engineering and Environmental, LLC, ECS Southeast, LLP, NSAFE, Inc., Frost Environmental Services, LLC, Geoservices, JAW Environmental Safety and Health, LLC, Labella Associates, DPC, Stantec Consulting Services, Inc., and Terracon Consultants, Inc., based upon their qualifications within the identified service categories for a 4-year term for an annual amount of $5 million for use by all departments.
Trying to make sure the chip's not up again. F, please.
A resolution to amend Resolution Number 30716 to increase the annual amount by 1.5 million due to additional contract utilization for the on-call blanket contracts for the Geo-Environmental Consulting and Construction Materials Testing Services, contract number E-21-002-301, with the following 7 consultant firms: Geoservices LLC, Geosyntech Consultants, KS Ware and Associates LLC, S&ME Inc., Stantec Consultant Services Inc., Terracon Consultants Inc., and Thompson Engineering Inc., based upon the 3 service categories of geotechnical, construction materials testing, and environmental services for each qualified consultant, for a revised annual amount of $3 million to be used by all departments.
I see no hands. Thank you to Parks, Public Works for all you do for the city of Chattanooga. And this concludes our, good. Good. Okay. Let me go there. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. You probably didn't, I don't want you to think I put my light on at the last minute. I previously asked the chair if I could ask my question at the end of the meeting. But if I could ask really quickly, Richard Beelan wasn't here, but I want to ask Jermaine about the economic development on future considerations. Would that be, for the funds for the formerly homeless people? Is that for people that are in domestic violence shelters, regular home shelters? Is it for people that's experiencing hidden homelessness and invisible homelessness?
This is under future considerations?
Yes.
The resolution? I'll let Rook come up to speak to that. I believe that is directly related to the Help Right
Housing
Here
Authority.
sanction encampment.
Oh, okay, with the,
Yeah.
okay.
So the interlocal agreement with the Housing Authority, obviously it says it will be up to $100,000. We typically will enter into an interlocal agreement with the Housing Authority when we do have more urgent situations such as sanction encampment. So that will be the initial usage for the interlocal agreement. And then in the event that, God forbid, there are any other situations where, like Budgetel or the larger sanction encampment that was displaced a year or so ago, we will be able to utilize this agreement to help rapid rehousing and for those individuals as well.
And then the other 2 questions that I had was that, previously, we had council person that was the committee person over HR, like Wilson always did that. And I'm not sure why we haven't, offered that to any council person to do it, but I would like to add the HR department to my stuff as committee. If committee chair, if no one else is in this.
Okay, we can discuss that in strategic planning.
Right.
Okay. And then also, I would like to add, that for this, that we can get placed on the agenda to have a department of equity. We need to have this presentation, get an update on what they're doing in that department. And then also, our chief of police is here, and she wants colleague here to address it. Like in the news and in our emails that we've been recently getting, we've been seeing a lot of gun violence that's been happening in our community. And I know often when we talk about, we ask for a presentation, they come bring Troy and Sands and they talk about, our community work that they're doing with our kids. I just want to know, what are we doing to kind of combat the gun violence that's happening? Like, we've had several kids that get shot and killed. There's families coming up now, and I think what's happening, like taking them to a jump park, that's not going to alleviate what's going on with the gun stuff that's going on.
Good afternoon, everybody. I couldn't quite hear everything you were saying, and I didn't want to move because it was making your voice get muted a little bit more. But if I understand correctly, you want us to give you some update on some of the things that we're doing to combat some of the violence that we're seeing now with guns? Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that we're doing. And part of what you hear from Troy, we also work with them in the space of outreach to the youth. And we're trying to even expand that as well with our police department. But from an enforcement piece, we do work a lot collaboratively with the county, other municipalities, as well as our federal partners. I think you've heard certain things like, especially surrounding the weekends, our nightlife engagement team. That's not just for the entertainment zones. It's for anywhere where we get or gather get any information that there's going to be, whether it be unsanctioned parties that may be large gatherings, as well as we have an intelligence unit that is also growing now. We've just recently hired more to be able to follow these trends and be able to be visible in the spaces that we need to be. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And also we're leveraging new technology that we're also bringing into the police department to expand our enforcement in those areas. So there's a lot going on. And if you'd like us to do a presentation for the future similar to what you're seeing from, we absolutely put something together and present on the day that you all want us to do it, to give you more of an expansive view of what we're doing.
I'm very appreciative of the work that Gordon is doing,
Right, right.
No smoke, sunlight, all this stuff is great, but in the midst of doing it, I'm seeing kids.
Yeah.
Wrong people getting killed, like every other day, we've been getting these emails talking about, just got concerns with all the cameras that's saturating our communities and the areas slowly as the information is coming from. Like, nobody's being arrested, because we're not getting that information.
So I don't, when you say you're getting emails about these occurrences, we absolutely push out there when we're doing enforcement, and we do get arrests. And a lot of our clearance rate and a lot of these, especially our homicides, are far above a national average. We're in the 90th percentile range as far as solving our homicides. And right now, currently, our aggravated assaults, which are, serious injuries, violent crimes, as well, as our robberies and those things are at a decline from this time compared to this time last year. But we will definitely put a presentation together for you, and whatever medium or mode with which you're getting your information about the occurrences, I need to find out about that to make sure that you're also seeing the successes and wins that we're seeing in that area, because they are, and they're doing a lot of great work in those areas. And I think in those spaces that has a lot to do why we're seeing those declines in those areas. So we'll definitely have conversation, because I do want you to be, all of you, to be informed about the great work that we are doing trying to combat the violent crime in this city, as well as seeing the reduction in crime since this time compared last year.
I agree with that. I'm not taking away.
No, but it's about perspective, and I get a lot of times, the community is rushed with a lot of things that are occurring, and you oftentimes don't see the resolution to that. And that's just as, if not more important, because it also sends a message out there, don't do that in Chattanooga, because you will be held accountable for it. And so that's a deterrent in it of itself. So I definitely need to make sure. And that's another reason why we're building up our communications department. We have a new PIO director, and that very task is for him to make sure that we are communicating to the community the good work that we're doing, to make sure that we're each year progressively trying to make sure that we make Chattanooga safer than the previous year.
I feel safe if you get them 20 homicides solved in District 9, but we ain't gonna like that. But thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, definitely, we'll talk.
You're good, Councilwoman. I want to publicly thank you for making yourself ready, available for all of us for the public safety meetings. And I'm sorry we couldn't do yesterday, but we'll do it another time.
Yeah, we love doing that, and that's a part of, and I think, as well, we said we would talk about doing one in District 9 as well, but we've got to communicate with everybody's district, and that's a part of why we're happy about doing that, because we want to combat the negative things that you're hearing, and oftentimes it's not 100% accurate.
Right.
So, we love being in those spaces and doing those things to be informative to the community.
That 90% solving the homicide, that's unheard of. And I want to commend everybody who in law enforcement doing Thank
Yeah.
you. I know it's a heck of a job you guys do, and thank you for the good work.
Yeah, I mean, when we have those incidents, it's around the clock that we continue working on those things until we get to resolution. And this, unless it just gets to a point where, leads start getting slower and slower and maybe more distant, but it does not mean that they stop working. Everybody wants to see instant resolution. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it may take a couple of weeks. Sometimes it may take a couple of months. Sometimes it may take a year. But we never stop working on those cases. It's just that, when you see an incident happen, it gets to the top of the news cycle, and then everybody thinks that there's nothing going on with the previous things, and that's absolutely inaccurate. We keep working on it.
I want to say this to on the record that I want to challenge everybody who out there watching us now. You see something, say something.
Yes.
We want to gradually make that 100%.
Right. And the successes that we do see, it absolutely is a lot of credit to our police department. But where we get the most success and the quicker, the quicker time span to resolution is always when our community supports us and gives us information that we ask for. So if it's not for the community, we wouldn't be as successful as we are with these cases. All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That concludes our 3:30 agenda session. We will have a attorney-client meeting. Thank you.